I read that without my glasses. Can you believe that?
Congratulations. You're not as old as I thought.
Okay.
Ready? And 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Jason Sykes here. It's the front porch. Next to me is my dear friend Josh Craig. Now, those of you that watched episode 3, this is what I call episode 3B. Is that a good title, Josh?
However you want to slice it.
The bottom line is we just couldn't finish saying everything we wanted to say. I mean, bullying's a pretty big subject. I mean, really, we could talk about it. We could probably talk about it all week or all month. I mean, it's a major problem. I don't want to forget Jordan in the back.
Hello.
Now, we don't have a camera on Jordan.
That's a good thing.
That's happening in the future. Look, this is technically our 4th episode, and now Josh, I don't know if you've watched the others, but I'm getting a little better, I think. Don't you think, Jordan?
Yeah.
I'm getting a little better?
Yeah.
You
You're not screaming anymore.
Yeah, build that confidence up. That's all you got to do.
I mean, look, man, I didn't grow up on, speaking in a mic on stage. I mean, it's look, what does it say? The say practice makes perfect.
That's right. It's the first. This is the second for me. So
well, there's gonna be many more.
All right,
I can tell you. Okay, so to get going and not get in the weeds. So to pick up where we left off. Now, look, these are our dominoes, and seriously, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't watch the last episode, please take a moment. Well, about 42 moments, 42 minutes, but it was a good one, really. I mean, I thought it was good. So you can understand, the reason for my dominoes on the table. Like I said before, I like simplicity, and I just kind of wanted to simplify what we were talking about. But the bottom line is, the subject is bullying. I want to discuss, how does a bully become a bully, really? And then we talked about, all right, well, what's the effects of the bullied, okay, the person that, is being bullied. And so, we really discussed that in depth. So now we want to talk about, all right, how do we fix this? How do we try our best to help the community, educate the community? Just from our experience, Josh, some of the things we were talking about just a minute ago, I mean, you hit it spot on. And before we go any further now, I do need to say this. Kelly Thurman, if you're watching, I told you that I'm definitely going to use your Bible lesson a few Sundays ago, and this is the episode, sir. So I wanted to say that I'm not plagiarizing, I'm not cheating. Some of this is Kelly Thurman. I love you to death, my friend. Awesome job. So I just want to give a shout out to Kelly Thurman. Okay, Josh. So let's kick this off. What do we do? How do we get started to stop the bullying that's going on today? Now, you had some statistics that you pulled up.
Yeah, I think it's going to start at home. I mean, number one thing is going to start at home, especially with these juveniles. I pulled some statistics earlier when we were talking before the show started. So this is just a statistic from fixedfamilycourts.com. It states 70% of runaways, 70% of juvenile delinquents, and 70% of child murderers come from single mother homes. Now, that's not picking on single mother homes by any stretch.
No.
But what we're saying is you have a lot of males and females, for that matter, that don't have a person to look up to in the home, especially as a young male growing up in a single mother home. Well, that mom's got to work. She's got to do the dishes. She's got to do the laundry. She's probably got more than one job at the same time.
Homework,
Two
jobs, like you said.
The kids' well-being, doctor visits. I mean, we can go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But that statistic basically tells me that 70% is a super high number.
It is.
It's a super high number.
And something I had mentioned, some figures that I'd gotten several months ago, but I mean, going all the way back to World War II, I talked about Adolf Hitler. His SS youth was boys that came from fatherless homes, which makes sense, okay? Because it makes them. I guess he felt like it would make them loyal to him, which it did. Okay.
And that's the outlet we were talking about. So if they don't get that outlet at home, they may get it in a environment that is not as appealing as you would want.
That's right.
I.e. the Hitler.
Right.
And he exposed that weakness in those boys that didn't have a father figure to look up to. Mm-hmm. He took that and he molded them in his eyes and what he wanted. That's right. And that's a dangerous outcome.
It was very dangerous because
everybody knows that.
Because that child's going to think, okay, this is the way life is supposed to be.
Exactly.
This is my reality. What you have going on is wrong. Which comes down
to the bullying factor. So I was in church Sunday, and Pastor Chip at Pine Lake, shout out Pastor Chip. He quoted this: "If you don't transform pain, you transfer it." So if you don't transform pain, you transfer it. And I think the main meaning in that, to me, is let's say I have a 14-year-old boy, and I'm a dad in a home. I drink a lot. I cuss my boy a lot. I abuse him. I lash out at him. Well, that pain that he's getting is from the person he looks up to, which is his dad, right?
That's right.
So I'm transferring my pain that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis to my 14-year-old child.
Right.
The same with the child. The bullying, that's where the bullying comes in. We talked about last week that they start to mold around middle school age, right? 6th to 8th grade.
Right.
So if their pain that they're feeling in their life, if they don't have an outlet to transform that pain, they're going to transfer that pain onto someone else.
That's right.
They're being bullied at home, maybe. We don't know what their life is like. And I've seen a lot of kids when I was working at Northwest Middle School that were good kids, but they were experiencing a terrible home life, and they were lashing out at school, getting into fights, talking back to teachers, destroying restrooms. I mean, all kind of things that they're transferring their pain because they haven't transformed it yet.
That's right. I tell you what, I'm going to branch off. And like I said, that we could talk about this for weeks, probably months, but we're going to try to condense this. But we're going to come back to this, all right? But let me stem off of that real quick. So, have you ever heard anybody mention the term generational curses?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So, look. I'm going to be careful how I say this. All right. I don't want to sit here and say, well, look, he can't help what he does. He can't help how he acts. All right. Well, there's two parts to that story. So talking about generational curses. Okay. So let's imagine that, you had a father that was kind of what you mentioned, abusive. Okay. Well, and let's say that father had a son. All right. And that's all that son knew. That's the only environment that son knew, right? So he grows up. He gets through school and all that, and gets a job and meets a nice young lady, gets married, has kids, and then all of a sudden that kid does something that he's not supposed to do. Don't know the situation, but he's probably more than likely going to act like his dad did when he was younger. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. He's transferring that pain onto somebody else.
That's right. And I'll tell you what. Now, I'm not saying I grew up in that kind of environment, but I will say this. And look, and I've said this so many times. This is the 4th episode we've done, but I want everyone to know that look, this is not a smoke and mirror. I don't believe that there is not a perfect person on planet Earth. There's only one person that ever walked this earth that was perfect, and that was Jesus Christ, and that's it. So I'll tell you, I'm not perfect. Okay, so I'll admit that recently. So my youngest son. He did something that, it bothered me. I didn't like it, and I got upset, and I probably shouldn't have gotten as upset as I did. But you know what? I thank the Lord that He opened my eyes and made me realize that, hey, Jason, let's stop and back up and punt a little bit. And so, hey, I apologize to him. Okay? Look, DC Talk. Remember that group?
Yeah.
Great band.
Great. My favorite album, Jesus Freak.
Great song, too.
Oh, yeah, I'm pissed to get better. So, one of them, and I can't remember the name of the song off the top of my head, but Jordan, if you can look it up, but it's that song that If I Stumble.
What
That's
if I stumble?
the name of it.
That
What
is
if
the
I
name?
stumble?
What if I stumble?
What if I
okay,
stumble?
there you go. Well, you know what? Right before that song, they had a few outtakes in that album. If you listen to the whole thing, start to finish, but they were doing an interview with somebody and basically said, "Hey, what's the leading cause of atheism in the world today?" And their answer was Christians.
Right. Because they're seeing the bad influence coming from people that are saying they're Christian.
Well, I don't know why I can't remember word for word what the guy said. But basically, somewhere along the lines of, you act one way 1 minute and you act another, which is unbelievable to an unbelieving world, something like that.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is we all make mistakes. Okay. We don't need to dwell on them, but we do need to swallow our pride. And there's nothing wrong with apologizing to a child. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there are people that they just. I've met adults that they just won't do that. I don't understand that.
That's where the problem lies. I mean, if we're in the wrong, and we can admit that, that's showing our child or showing that child that we can change and we can learn from our mistakes.
That's right.
I mean, nobody's a perfect human being, like you said earlier. I mean, that child will see a little bit of humility, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
I mean, because if that child does something wrong, and let's say he bites a kid on the playground,
right.
And what's the teacher or administrator going to do? They're going to say, hey, you need to apologize to that kid.
Right.
Well, if we don't apologize to the children, what are we teaching them?
That it's okay not to apologize.
Yeah. If we're wrong, I feel like we need to take ownership.
That's right.
And make that apology or make it right.
That's right. I tell you, somebody told me this a long time ago, and I tell you, it's resonated with me. But you never know who's watching you.
Right.
You never know who you're going to influence by what you say or what you do. Now, oftentimes I'll forget that, but oftentimes I'll remember. So let me jump into this real quick. Okay, Kelly, here you go. Kelly, this is Kelly Thurman here. So we had a Bible study one Sunday morning, and it started out, the title of it was "The Choice is Yours." Now, check this out. So here's the introduction. So think for a moment about the thing you regret the most.
I think we all have something we may have regretted in the past.
Yeah. Don't want to say it on here. I mean, you know, think about that. So, newsflash, he says, getting older doesn't make you a better decision maker. I jumped ahead. Prior to that, he says, as you grow, so do the consequences of your choices.
Yep.
Now, that's a profound statement. It really is. And that resonates with me because, you know, the Bible says, you know, the tongue is the tongue is the sharpest sword. I don't know. Look that up for me, Jordan. So I'm going to keep going here. Getting older just means the consequences are higher. All right? And he goes on to say, no one plans to make choices that they'll regret. Do you? I mean, I don't.
Absolutely not. You don't know. I mean, sometimes you don't know what you're doing.
No.
I mean, sometimes you don't realize the mistake you're making until you mature as a person.
That's right.
I think that goes back to the youth that we're talking about and the decisions they make when they're 14 to 18.
That's right.
Well, when they get 18, those consequences get a lot worse. You break into a car at 14, you go to the juvenile detention center, and you don't have a felony on your record, right? It's on your juvenile record.
Right.
Well, what happens when you break into a car at 18? That's a felony.
That's right.
That follows you the rest of your life. You rob somebody, that's a felony. That's going to follow you the rest of your life.
That's right.
So the consequences do get much bigger as you get older.
Sure it does. I tell you, here's a perfect example. So I was on the internet today pulling up some articles. So here's one that was published actually today. And this is a perfect example of bad choices that honestly probably led farther down the lineage of when this person was even born. So it says here, Good Samaritan chases down a drunken driver after a crash that kills a Texas police officer. And this is something you never want to see, you never want to hear about. But and this happened in 2021. Yeah, November 2021. It says here, authorities in Texas released a video that shows a Good Samaritan chasing down a drunken driver who tried to run from the scene of a crash that killed an off-duty Texas police officer. Now, it moves on. It talks about, you know, who did it, where. This was Fox 4 in Dallas is who obtained this video. But the Texas police chiefs say here, this is something that they had mentioned in the article. There's a lack of value for life, and there's no fear of consequences. So this fella here says that he, prior to this accident, says he had 16 single shots of vodka.
Goodness gracious.
16 shots. So basically 8 double vodka and Red Bull cocktails. So vodka and Red Bull doubles, 8 of them, 16 shots. He gets in his car. So, all right. So here we go. He probably didn't wake up that day thinking he was going to kill somebody. Or maybe, I don't know.
Absolutely not. Well, that's
Okay.
a perfect example of saying you wake up in the morning and you don't realize what you're going to do that
That's
day.
right.
I mean, he didn't intentionally get in the. Yes, he intentionally got in the car after he drank, but I mean, you don't get in the car after you drank alcohol and then say, "Oh, I'm gonna go kill somebody."
Right. No.
I mean, that's not how these drunk driving accidents happen. They happen because of the impairment of that driver.
That's right. But here's my question, though. So he did it, all right? What would make somebody do something like that? Just it's something to ponder on. What was this fella's background, right? What kind of environment did he grow up in to see this kind of behavior, to make that kind of decision. I mean, it just makes you think about those things.
I mean,
So
unfortunately,
how far back do we go?
Unfortunately, that's really hard to analyze. I mean,
Yeah.
he could have had a perfect childhood. He could have a perfect life. He may be going through a divorce. He may have had a terrible childhood. May have a terrible life,
We don't know.
and he may be an alcoholic.
Could be.
He may not be. He may be coming from a work party.
But the
and
bottom
just
line
got out
is,
of hand. Yeah.
you know, there's consequences.
There's consequences
For
to every
every
action.
choice, that's right.
And the biggest problem nowadays that we're facing, this is why I say it starts at home. We need to be responsible for ourselves. We need to take extreme ownership, and we need to fix ourselves before we try to fix anybody else.
Right.
Everybody's worried about this next person. We need to fix ourselves.
I agree. And I'll tell you what, and Kelly, I'm going to add something to this. Don't be mad at me. But it says here, okay, so people don't plan to mess up their lives. They just don't plan not to.
Right.
Okay, so this is people in general. All right. Well, this also applies to, all right, fathers of the world, parents, and community leaders. This applies to everybody. All right. So let me spin it a little bit. I know we're living in the world of spin, but I probably poor choice of words, but you know what I'm trying to say. So let me say it like this. People, meaning me, I didn't plan to mess up somebody else's life.
Right.
All right. I just didn't plan not to mess up someone else's life.
But that goes along with those consequences. Not only are we messing up our life, not only did that guy in that car mess up his life and probably spend the rest of his life in jail, but he messed up that person's life that he took and their family. Mm-hmm. And the dominoes keep falling.
So I'm going to say this right here. This part right here is really good. So here's one right here. Now I say this to my kids a lot. Assumption. I don't want to say assumption is the root to all evil, but how many times when we assume are we right?
I assume I'm always right.
Oh, okay.
I assume I'm always right. I don't assume I'm always right, but I mean, a lot of people would. I think a lot of people would say they're always right. I mean,
well, of course,
in their view,
of sure they are.
I've been proven wrong a lot, though.
I have too.
My wife will tell you that.
Same here. But listen, all right. Let me ask it this way. All right. Let me ask you this way. When emotion is involved, all right, our assumption is if it's not wrong, that it must be okay or it must be right. True or false? Think about that. All right.
You mean when emotions involved, when like this a high pressure situation? Is that what
possibly,
you're talking about?
or if you're in an argument, or if you're trying to be right, or just
yeah, of course. If you're in an argument, you're always going to think you're right.
That's
I mean, whether it be with your spouse, whether it be with your children, and that goes back to the apology thing.
Sure, it does.
That really goes all the way back to like if I'm wrong in a situation, and let's say I argue with my wife, and then I sit down after the argument's over, and I think about what that whole argument was about. Number one, it's probably a dumb argument anyway.
Most of the time.
And then I think about why did I even want to make that point? So
I can answer my question.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think about it.
And you don't, because in a high stress situation,
you're in the moment.
You say what you think's right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, check this out. Without ever realizing it, we are really asking this question. How close can I get to sin without actually sinning?
That's pretty deep.
Man, that's like
deep.
episode C.
That's pretty deep.
All right, we're gonna table that. That is deep. Yeah. But I wanted to put that out there. Let's think about that. So here we go. All right, so here's the next question. What is the wise thing to do? Now there's a There's a Bible verse attached to this. Kelly, good stuff here now. He who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but he who walks wisely will be delivered. Now that's Proverbs 28:26. I read that without my glasses. Can you believe that?
Congratulations. You're not as old as I thought.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate that.
That was pretty funny.
So,
That's why I got my glasses on, because I can't see nothing.
all right. So he wraps it up where he says, okay, here's the implication. You can't trust your heart. Those who walk wisely will be delivered. Talk wisely is to ask the question, what is the wise thing to do? Those who walk wisely will be rescued from choices that lead to regret. So, here's the deal. Walking wisely, doing the right thing. The bottom line is that's like an exercise. That's something that's a muscle you have to flex every day. For me. I mean, not to say that I'm a bad person, but it's like I really nowadays I try to make a conscious effort, and I don't succeed sometimes, but I do try to make a conscious effort that before I say something or before I do something, what are going to be my consequences for that? Who will that affect? Right? What will that do in my home, or what will that do to my coworker, or
Well, that comes with maturity as well. I mean, the older we get, the more we try to realize, the things that come out of our mouth can get us in trouble sometimes. And I'm like you. The older I get, and the more mature I get, I try to stop and think about what I'm going to say before I say it, especially if I'm angry.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it don't work out that way, unfortunately. But I do feel like we should try to treat each other better. Mm. That'll show our kids that we care about one another.
Right.
And that'll show sensitivity on the part to where it seems like everybody's out for themselves now. And we don't take care of one another.
Right.
Well, sometimes you just need to keep your mouth shut and not say anything.
That reminds me of something. So I tell you what, there's a friend that I met the latter part of last year. Haven't known him long at all, but he said something to me that has resonated, and it changed me. And I'm gonna say this is what he said to me. He said, if there's ever a time when I don't understand something, or something doesn't feel right in the moment, I take a step back, I'm quiet, and I listen. And I observe. Yeah. Now, Jordan, I saw you back there smiling. Are you really going to smile about this? Now, Craig, don't laugh so loud we can't hear anything else. I tend to run my mouth. I know. I get excited, and I can... Go ahead.
Because there's no camera on me. I'm going to tell the audience I am shaking my head right now.
Okay. Yeah. So, but you know what? Now, there's probably a lot of folks shaking their head right now. But here's the deal. Ever since he told me that, I tell you, I wrote that down in several places, and I make a conscious effort. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, and again, this is something we can talk about on and on and on. Hey, did you find that just a second ago?
The Bible verse?
Yes.
I found two that you might have been talking about.
Yeah. What's the first one?
Let's see.
Da, 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 da. Can I not do that on TV?
One is James 1:26. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, he deceives his heart. That person's religion is worthless.
Okay, that's strong. What's the other one? Something about the tongue is sharp as a sword, or...
I looked that up, but I could not find it.
All right, guys, we'll get back to you on that. Now, a couple other things I want to mention, and I know we've gotten off in the weeds a little bit, but I think one of the main things we've established is all right. As parents, we've got to do a better job paying attention to what we're doing, what we're saying. Okay, how we're treating our young people, the example that we're setting for them. That, hey, it may be okay for us, but is it really okay for them? Okay.
I found it, Jason.
All right, go ahead, Jordan.
It's Hebrews 4:12 ESV.
Mm-hmm.
For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword. Is that what we're talking about?
Kind of, sort of,
I
but
think
still.
you're combining two verses in your head.
I probably am. Yeah, I tend to do that from time to time. But back to what I was saying, Josh. We've got to do a better job at the house. We've got to do a better job paying attention to what our young people are doing. But it goes a little farther than that. We got to do a better job with our community. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
We've got to step up because, look, there are going to be situations where there is going to be a single parent situation, and it's not going to be intentional. And, you know, we need to step up and we need to fill that gap. We need to fill that void.
I mean, fill those voids. You got your coaches out there.
Yeah.
You got a lot of coaches that are role models to these young men growing up, and these young ladies. They have coaches, they have teachers,
Right.
They have youth pastors, they have pastors, they have aunts, uncles. I mean, anybody can be a mentor. All you have to do is show up for that person. You don't have to be a star athlete for someone to look up to you.
No, Jordan, what's that program we've got that we have men in our church?
Fathers in the Field.
Fathers in the Field. That's one that we've got where
It's a great program.
There's men in our church that mentor.
We now have a youth pastor that is a product of Fathers in the Field.
Yep. How about that?
I mean, that
Doing the right thing.
yeah.
Just do it. Look, spend a little extra time pouring into somebody that otherwise could probably make some life-changing bad decisions.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about it before, in private conversations. Mm-hmm. Sometimes those youth out there that are reaching out and that are becoming a problem, whether it be they're becoming violent, whether it be they're being a bully, maybe they just need someone to talk to.
That's right.
If you see someone being bullied or being the bully, mm-hmm. it's not just the kid being bullied that may need help. That's everybody
Without
thinks.
Question. It could be the person.
It really could be the bully. Yep. Could be the biggest issue.
That's right.
He may have all the problems that are mm-hmm. going on in his life. He just needs someone to step up. Just talk to him. Just have a simple conversation with some of these kids in these schools or in your church or at these ball fields, and just talk to them.
That's right.
It's a very simple thing, but if you do that, it might open the door for him to be like, hey, somebody out there cares, and they may open up to him.
That's right.
And that may give you the opportunity to put a little goodness in his heart instead of all the hate.
I agree. And look, I always say this. It's the small things that we do in life, the small good things that add up to the big things. Because think about it, just like Josh said, if you take a few moments to talk to a young person and just pour into them a little bit, well, you know what? What you just did might have stopped something very bad. You might have saved a life. How about that?
And you might have saved that life and you may not even realize it.
You may not even realize it. I tell you what, guys, we're running out of time, but I wanted to read this to you. This is actually out of a daily devotional that I read here. It's called Pressing On. Now, look, I'm talking to everybody. I'm not just talking to adults. I'm talking to our young people too. Because I'll tell you what, when I read this, it talked to me. It says here, do you feel stuck in life? You ever felt that way?
Of course I felt that way. Anybody that's ever had any success has felt stuck at one time or another.
That's right. Does it seem like you have fallen in a ditch, so to speak, unable to move forward because of failures or successes from the past? Write it down. God takes no pleasure in a derailed, ditch-dwelling Christian. He wants you to get back on track and moving forward as a force for Jesus Christ. Now, this next sentence is what spoke volumes to me. God is the great I am, not the great I was. Now, there's a lot more on that page, but I'm in on that. I want everyone to really think about that. I have recently. Life's not easy. It's not. We could think that we might get in a situation where it's just so bad. We're in that ditch that we can't dig ourselves out of. But that's just not true.
And I got another quote here that I looked up, and I really want to share this one.
Go for it.
The Dalai Lama once said, "Our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them." I think we can all kind of take something from that quote right there.
Sure can. Love is a tough thing. But you know what? We're put on this earth to do what?
Help others.
That's right. Gang, thank y'all for tuning in. This isn't over. This is a discussion that we're going to talk about as many times as we need to. That's what we're here for. I really hope you got something out of this. I did. Again, I want to thank Josh Craig. Every time I'm around you, you surprise me.
Appreciate that.
I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It's my pleasure. I'm glad to come out here and talk about things that needs to be talked about in this world nowadays.
Brother, and this isn't the last time you're going to be here.
I think we need more positivity in this world instead of all the negativity we're surrounded by.
Yeah.
Stay positive and keep pushing forward.
Stay positive and press on. Thank you, everybody.